Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown and we're doing predictions for UFC Fight Night Bermudez versus Korean Zombie. The return of the Korean Zombie. Very excited for this main event. The rest of the card is just garbage. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. The fight card prior to this one, UFC on Fox 23 is a much better card, and this is back to kind of their typical FS1 fight night filler shit. But great main event. Really intrigued by the return of the Korean Zombie. Follow me on Twitter, guys. Link in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. I'm going to try to have recaps for this event as well as previous events from the new year. And check out my predictions for UFC on Fox 23. Those will be linked in the description. Okay, at women's strawweight. Oh, and by the way, there are a couple of debuting fighters on this card. And if you guys watched my previous videos, you would have heard me say that for the new year, I am going to give predictions for all of the debuting fighters, which is something I didn't do in the past. But I've heard from you guys that you want to see that from me, so I'm going to do that. I'm not going to research these guys extensively. Sometimes there's very little footage of them on YouTube. But if there are one or two fights that I can watch of theirs, I will do that and try to make a prediction based on that. And just keep in mind, it's for you guys. I'm not trying to give you betting advice especially on those fights. But my picks could very well change. I'm still going to listen to other people's analysis who know these fighters better than I do and make a prediction based off of their analysis combined with my viewing. Yeah, they're not informed picks. So just want you guys to keep that in mind. But I will be making predictions for all of the fights going forward. At women's strawweight, Jessica Andrade versus Angela Hill. This will be one of my most confident picks for the card, and I have to go with Jessica Andrade. Angela Hill, I watched her two most recent fights in Invicta, and she seems to just have the same style that she did when she was in the UFC and the same weaknesses, and that's being taken down, put on her back. Did attempt and have a pretty close triangle against one of those opponents in her two most recent fights. I think it was her most recent one. I can't remember the opponent's name. And that might be something she could use here against Andrade, who was submitted by Marion Renault via triangle after dropping her and following up. Sarah Morris even, where she was not competitive in the early parts of that fight. At the end, Andrade let her take her back and attempt to choke. And then we've also seen Andrade get submitted by Raquel Pennington. So her weakness is on the ground and getting submitted. I just want to mention, I think Hill might be able to capitalize on an opportunity on the ground, but this should be Andrade's fight. Hill struggling with the wrestling in her recent fights and struggling with the wrestling when she fought Tisha Torres. Andrade should be able to dominate her there. We saw Andrade have big slam takedowns against Joanne Calderwood and eventually guillotined her. And Angela Hill in her, I think it was her second most recent fight in Invicta, she got put in a guillotine a lot by, I think it was a Brazilian woman that she was fighting, and I think Andrade is going to beat her that way with the guillotine. And on the feet, I would also expect Andrade to have the advantage. She's just a better boxer. Hill likes to stay on the outside and pick her shots, and she is aggressive. She is athletic, but Andrade has the more meat and potatoes boxing game and bigger power as well. I think she could work her way inside, being the shorter fighter, and really clip Hill if the fight played out on the feet. But I'm going to take Andrade by submission. I think she takes her down early and gets her with the guillotine. All right, at bantamweight, newcomer Ricardo Ramos versus Michinori Tanaka. Even though this is a debuting fighter, this is going to be one of my most confident picks. I saw Ricardo Ramos's, I think it was his second most recent fight against Manny Vasquez, and Vasquez came out, got the guy down, and was just all over him like a snake. As Ramos tried to get back up, he took his back, and they ended up on the ground again, and got this guy in a deep rear naked. So I have to take Michinori Tanaka, who is a great scrambler, good grappler, was competitive in his last fight against Hani Yaya. Did he get submitted in that fight? I can't quite remember, but yeah, if he struggled like that outside of the UFC, I think a guy like Tanaka, who hasn't been too active lately, didn't look great against Soto, whose striking is still pretty rudimentary, but has really strong grappling. I think he will be able to dominate Ramos on the mat and get a submission. So I'm going to take Tanaka by submission. All right, at women's strawweight, Tecia Torres versus Beck Rawlings. Another one of my most confident picks. Beck Rawlings just does not seem to me to be a high-level women's fighter in that division. She was gifted a decision against Seohee Ham. It was a very back-and-forth, even fight, and pretty sloppy striking affair. And took the first round off of Paige Van Zandt, but then got brutally knocked out by a pretty low percentage, obscure technique. And Paige Van Zandt since then has proven that she's not an elite fighter. So not really high on Beck Rawlings. We've seen her out wrestled pretty badly by Heather Jo Clark, and Tecia Torres has a good shot. She's a decent wrestler. I think she can out wrestle Rawlings. And Tecia Torres has a much cleaner technical striking game. Not much power, doesn't really seem to connect with a lot of force most of the time against her opponents. Does occasionally hurt them, like against Angela Magana. But will have a much higher level striking technique than Beck Rawlings. So I'm going to take Tecia Torres to win a pretty clear decision here. She may not look all that impressive because, like I said, she's not always that dangerous, but I would be pretty shocked if she lost this fight. So Tecia Torres by decision. And then at welterweight, Alex Morono versus to be determined. He was supposed to fight, I think, Sheldon Westcott. Actually would have taken Sheldon Westcott in that fight because he has the wrestling, and Morono's previous opponents in Noak and Muntazri did not have wrestling and just tried to outstrike him. And Morono seems like a hard-headed guy, tough to hurt, and just continuously comes forward. I think Westcott would have been able to change it up and take him down, beat him with the wrestling, but does not have an opponent as of right now. I'll try to include my pick in the description once that matchup is announced. All right, at light heavyweight, Khalil Rountree versus Daniel Jolly. Excuse me. This is a tough fight for me to call. Daniel Jolly, we haven't seen him since, I think it was August of 2015 when he lost to Misha Serkunov, and that was his only UFC fight. Khalil Rountree, not only do I not think he may be one of these Brandon Thatch type guys who is just not going to cut it at the UFC level. We've seen 2 losses from him already against the winner of Tough Andrew Sanchez, and his last fight got finished by newcomer Tyson Pedro in the first round. He's weak on the ground. Also had a really bad loss to Corey Hendricks in his first fight on Tough. So I think Khalil Rountree is one of these guys that might be easy to take down, and if he is put on his back, can get submitted. Daniel Jolly seems like a pretty similar fighter to Rountree in that he's really aggressive and really goes for the kill on the feet, and he's athletic and has power. I'm going to go with Rountree just because he's been more active. I believe this is Jolly's only third fight since 2014, and Rountree's been gaining experience even though he's been losing unimpressively. And if they're both going to go bang it out, I've just seen more of Rountree winning that way and getting finishes against who's the guy on the show? Josh, the guy who beat Corey Hendricks. And also that first guy that Rountree fought in the elimination fights, got a pretty brutal finish over him, and then even dropped Tyson Pedro in their fight early. So Rountree has the power, he's athletic, I've just seen more of him. I have to go with Rountree, but could very well be a fight where Jolly is able to clip Rountree first, or take him down against Josh Foster, one of Jolly's previous fights. I think his last fight before coming into the UFC, he was just able to take this guy down repeatedly and just pound on him for a decision win. So if he can take down Rountree, like I said, Rountree looks very weak on the ground. It might be one of these guys who just can't cut in the UFC. And also, not just that, but Rountree's fighting at light heavyweight. I just think he's too small there. Was too small against Sanchez. Corey Hendricks got this guy down easily and submitted him on tough. Same thing with Tyson Pedro. I don't think Rountree is built for light heavyweight. I really think he should move to middleweight. So yeah, I'm very weary of picking Rountree here, but as of right now, I'll do it. Might have to change my pick listening to some other people who are more familiar with both these fighters. At featherweight, Skelly versus Chris Gruetzmacher, who is from Tough, was on the season with Ryan Hall and Artem Lobov. Actually got blown out by Artem Lobov like he did to several guys in that season. But this will be one of my most confident picks, and frankly, I think this is a complete mismatch. Skelly should be able to totally dominate. Skelly can be stung on the feet, but he can, at the same time, he survives those type of fights and comes out on top. He was able to knock out Ehlers after getting hit a lot in that fight. And Kevin Souza, who was just putting heat on this guy and dropping him all over that cage, Skelly was able to eventually create a scramble, get him down, and submit him. So Skelly's got a really funky, really dangerous scramble submission skill set. And I think he's going to be able to submit Grutzmacher here, who is a rugged, scrappy, dirty boxer. Really just tries to close that distance, get that clinch, and land shots from the phone booth. That's what he did on Tough in one of his wins. That's what he tried to do against Abner Yoveris, but even against Yoveris, I thought he could have easily lost that decision. Even as Yoveris was getting backed up, was still able to hit Grutzmacher a lot, was able to get the tight waist on him a couple times. I think Skelly's going to tie him up, get him down, and submit him. And we've seen Skelly's been getting more aggressive and more dangerous, coming out with that flying front kick against Maximo Blanco and following up with the submission. So Skelly, even after getting dominated by Darren Elkins, I think he's still continuing to improve and be more effective with his style. So going with Skelly by submission. All right, at heavyweight, Adam Milstead versus Curtis Blaydes. Adam Milstead got a TKO over Chris De La Rocha in his debut, where he got the TKO while the fight was still on the feet early in the second round. And Curtis Blaydes is a solid wrestler who probably gave Francis Ngannou his toughest fight thus far in the UFC, and followed up with a fairly impressive performance against Cody East. Blaydes' striking is methodical. It's calculated. Not very dangerous or very good yet, I think. And Milstead is the opposite. Against De La Hocha, he came out guns blazing and dropped him and tried to pound him out. Didn't. So if this fight stays on the feet, I think Milstead might be able to scare off Blaydes. Ngannou really attacked the eye and swallowed it shut. But I think Blaydes will have the wrestling advantage. De La Hocha try to take Milstead down, press him against the fence, and Blaydes has that collegiate wrestling background. So I think in a matchup between a power aggressive power brawler versus a solid wrestler, got to go with the wrestler. So I'm gonna go with Curtis Blaydes. I'm going to take him by decision here because Milstead seems like a tough guy. All right, another heavyweight fight, Justin Ledet versus Dmitry Sosnovskiy, a newcomer. And I'm actually going to go with Sosnovskiy here. I watched his two most recent fights against Oleg Gabchenko and Ivo Kuk. And Sosnovskiy just seems like one of these guys who's a bruiser, built like a tank, and comes out and just tries to pretty much run over his opponents. I think he got both of those guys down, was able to mount them and just pound them out. And Justin Ledet, while he's looked pretty impressive against Chase Sherman, showing a really good jab and probably some of the best boxing technique we've ever seen in the UFC, and then followed it up with submission win over Mark Godbeer, where he shot a takedown early, timed it really well, and got the submission easily thereafter. While he's looked good, I don't think he's going to be as athletic or physically strong enough to compete with Sosnovskiy. Just again, from the couple of fights I've seen of Sosnovskiy's. So I'm going to go with Sosnovskiy, and he looks like a guy who might be able to put Ledet on his back. And I don't know how good Ledet is there. And I don't think he's going to be hanging out at range and stuck on the end of Ledet's jab. He looks like a guy who's going to be able to close the distance better than Chase Sherman. Seems like he has power, and he really swings for the fences. So I'm going to go with Sosnovskiy here, but again, it's a newcomer. Don't have a great feel for these guys. I've only seen a couple of his fights, and I'll definitely be listening to some others' analysis. All right, a lightweight, James Vick versus Abel Trujillo. This is probably the hardest matchup to call on this card, and the one that the only other fight other than the main event that I'm really looking forward to. I am going to go with James Vick. Abel Trujillo, he's usually a terror in that first round, and then has been known to gas hard, although lately he's been fighting more calculated and more composed. But I just think on the ground, he does not cut it in the UFC. He can hit a submission of his own. He has a powerful guillotine, but we've seen Gleison Tebow hold this guy down and choke him out. That was controversial, but still. And in his most recent fight against Jordan Rinaldi, he was totally dominated for all of that second round. Rinaldi took his back. He was working a choke, just smothered him on the ground. Even the Jamie Varner fight years ago almost got submitted by a north-south choke. And James Vick, while he's not a great wrestler or a great top-position grappler, he does have a wicked guillotine that he's able to hit on guys off of their own takedown attempts. I think Trujillo is probably going to shoot in for a takedown at some point, and Vick will be able to capitalize and submit him. So I'm going to go with Vick by submission, but Vick, he can be put on his back. He can struggle there a bit. He was taken down by Glyco Franca, and he's susceptible to being tagged by big overhands. Franca tagged him a few times. Nick Hine dropped him a few times and was able to get a crucifix position on him. So if Trujillo puts in a good performance here, he's able to stay out of that guillotine, hit takedowns, and then hit him with big shots on the feet. I could see him getting a decision or possibly even finishing Vick. We saw Vick get brutally knocked out by Beneil Dariush in his last fight. But I also think the length of Vick on the feet will give Trujillo problems. And I would expect Vick to probably have the better cardio down the stretch. So I'm going with Vick by submission, but this is a close, tough fight. All right, a light heavyweight, Ovince St. Preux versus newcomer Volkan Oezdemir. And I saw two of his, I think these were his two most recent fights, Alihan Vahayev and Paco Estevez. And kind of like similar to Sosnovskiy, seems just kind of like a big, physically imposing fighter who just goes in there, tries to rush his opponents, get him in mount, and pound him out, and that's how he beat both Vahayev and Estevez. And in comparison to St. Preux, who's been in there with some world-class competition at this point, Glover Teixeira, John Jones, even who's the Brazilian guy, Cavalcante, and Shogun. Those wins of Oezdemir's are probably they don't compare to St. Preux's resume. However, if Oezdemir is a really strong wrestler and he can throw, he can land, close the distance and land big haymakers. I could see him giving Preux problems because Preux's still a guy who, while his ground game is improving, and even against Jimmy Manuwa, was able to get him down early and get on his back and outwork him on the ground. Preux can still be taken down. We saw that a couple years ago against Ryan Bader. Glover Teixeira was able to eventually hold him down and submit him. So if Oezdemir can come out and hit takedowns, I could see him giving Preux problems. And if he's able to close the distance and land big overhands, I could see Preux getting tagged, although I think Preux, you need to be a more technical striker to take out Preux like Jimmy Manuwa. And Preux, his striking game, while still not all that technical, it's been getting better. He's sitting down on his punches more and being less wild, leaving himself less vulnerable. So I have to take St. Preux. Just the higher level of competition he's faced, and he's had some really impressive wins, and his wrestling game is getting better. But he can still get knocked out by guys like Jimmy Manuwa. He can still get out wrestled. So I don't know about Oezdemir, but I can't pick him. Getting a couple of really dominant wins over no names. And he also had a loss to Kelly Anundsen in Bellator by neck crank, I think. So I don't know. Oezdemir, I just don't know what level of fighter he is. But again, I would watch out for that boxer wrestle style of Oezdemir. He might be able to give St. Preux some problems. All right, at women's strawweight, Alexa Grasso versus Felice Herrig. I'm going to take Alexa Grasso here. She had an okay performance, I thought, against Heather Jo Clark. Had some moments where she was able to back her into the fence and had some pretty technical boxing combinations that hurt Clark. But Clark was able to compete with her in the clinch. She seemed to have a bit of a physical advantage against her. And Grasso still couldn't put her away. So, Clark's not a super high-level fighter in that division. She is durable. However, Felice Herrig, I don't know really if she has any striking game at all, because all of her fights in the UFC and even on Tough, were grappling affairs, and that's where she wants to get the fight. And she is really strong there. So I don't know how Grasso's grappling game is. Herrig is a very fast-paced scrambler. Will attack with submissions from odd positions. Had a really nice win over Colin Curran in her last fight, where she was able to get her down immediately and submit her. So I don't know. I think Grasso, that's an unknown here, is Grasso's ground game. But just because Herrig has, she's always fought on the ground and, has not proven her stand up to be capable of fighting of being effective against better competition in the UFC, I have to go with Alexa Grasso, who I think will be able to stay off the ground, create enough separation to outpoint her, outstrike her. So I'm going with Grasso by decision, but this is definitely a tougher one where I'm really not that sure. All right, and then the main event at featherweight, Dennis Bermudez versus Chan Sung Jung. Great matchup, perfect matchup for both guys for where they are in their careers right now. And really, to me, the only question that matters in this fight is how is Chan Sung Jung after this, almost 3.5 year long layoff, and it honestly feels like a lot longer than that. What kind of physical shape is he going to be in? Is he going to come out really slow, rusty? Because if that's the case, Bermudez is a workhorse, pushes a really high pace, a really smothering wrestler. And I could see if Chan Sung Jung is any of those things, rusty or not in fight shape, I could see Bermudez coming out and just taking him down, smothering him, and pounding him out. But if we're comparing the Chan Sung Jung, who left the UFC, to the Bermudez now, I have to go with Chan Sung Jung in that matchup. Bermudez, really strong wrestler, pushes a really high pace, just a pest on the ground, sticks on you like glue, and, very few, or I don't think anyone's outworked Dennis Bermudez on the mat in the UFC. But on the feet, Bermudez's striking is just too basic. We've seen that cost him a few times. Ricardo Lamas put this guy down with a jab. Jeremy Stevens, after kind of getting out grappled a bit early against Bermudez and struggling with the wrestling, was able to open up with his hands, found those openings and put Bermudez away. Chan Sung Jung is a lot more technical on the feet than Bermudez, more crafty, and we've seen that one-punch knockout power from him against Mark Hominick, and he was also outstriking and hurting Dustin Poirier, and that was an old Dustin Poirier, but I think even that Poirier was a more technical, more powerful striker than Bermudez is now. So I think on the feet, while Bermudez is probably a higher volume striker, pushes a higher pace, Chan Sung Jung has that craft. He can counter. He has that bigger power. So I think he would catch Bermudez on the feet at some point on the feet if they strike. And on the ground, same thing. Bermudez will be the one dictating the offense with the wrestling. He'll probably get Chan Sung Jung down. But from there, again, I think Chan Sung Jung is more dangerous. And over 5 rounds, I think we just need that one opportunity, because I don't see Bermudez being dangerous enough to finish Chan Sung Jung. He only needs that one opportunity to hit that submission. And we saw against Dustin Poirier, really attacked with a lot of submissions off of his back. Showed a very good guard, had a triangle choke and an armbar at one point, and eventually got him with the Darce choke. And we don't see that kind of submission offense from Bermudez. And we actually saw in the Tatsuya Kawajiri fight, while Bermudez pretty much dominated him for the whole fight, Kawajiri still had some moments where he was able to get in on his legs against the fence or get that front headlock position. And a guy's dangerous and is crafty with his submissions as Chan Sung Jung. I think given an opportunity like that, can probably submit Bermudez. So I am going with Chan Sung Jung, and I think I'm going to go with him by submission. Also, Bermudez, when he fought Diego Brandao in his first UFC fight, dropped the guy, but when went to follow up, got immediately submitted with an armbar. So not a guy that I think has the finesse on the ground, the submission skills to to survive against these more skilled fighters off of their back. So yeah, I'm going to go with Chan Sung Jung by submission. I think he might get it late in the fight. Yeah, big question of how he's going to look. A very long layoff. You know, is he going to be in fight shape? How rusty is he going to be? But I think Bermudez is not a dangerous enough fighter to get him out of there. I think Chan Sung Jung is going to have 5 rounds. And frankly, since that win over Clay Guida, Bermudez has not really had a really notable win. You know, got finished by Lamas and Stevens, and since then had really just okay wins against Honey Jason and Tatsuya Kawajiri, neither of whom are really top fighters. So yes, Chan Sung Jung just more dangerous, more crafty. Yeah, that's my pick. Korean Zombie by submission. Thank you guys for watching. Those are my predictions for Fight Night Bermudez versus Chan Sung Jung. Check out my predictions for the previous event, UFC on Fox 23. I'll try to have recaps for both of those events. But I'll see you guys for the next event, which is UFC 208, Home versus De Randami. Not a great lineup. Definitely not a card I'm really looking forward to, but I will be here with predictions nonetheless. I'll see you guys then. Bye.